beautiful souls. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Carolyn and this channel is all about true crime, mystery, and anything abnormal. I highly recommend subscribing because this channel is definitely a vibe. On the evening of July 22nd, 1995, Elyse Pahler snuck out of her bedroom. The way her bedroom was set up, it was pretty easy to sneak out. She had French doors attached to her bedroom, so it was very easy for her to sneak out and go out and be with her friends without her parents knowing. She had snuck out sometimes in the past, but overall she was a pretty good girl. But on this night, she decided she was going to sneak out and have a bit of fun. Although Elyse had snuck out before, she had always snuck out to hang out with her sort of regular core group of friends. But on this particular evening, she was sneaking out to hang out with three boys that she was acquaintances with, but she didn't know that well. The plan for the evening was for her to sneak out, meet the three boys, and they were all going to go to a eucalyptus grove and smoke a bit of the devil's lettuce. Elyse had gone to school with two of the three boys, and as I had mentioned before, she was generally a really good kid. She kind of got into typical teenage problems with her parents, sneaking out. She had been caught by her parents smoking a little bit of the devil's lettuce, and for her parents, they really wanted to address this. So they ended up sending her to a therapy program to maybe get a little bit of help to kind of get her back on track and following their rules. Well, as she was in this program, she met a boy by the name of Jacob. And this would be a fateful meeting. Jacob was in the same program, but he was in the program for much more serious issues. Jacob was definitely into much harder substances than Elyse. Elyse had only ever, smoked a little, and I think she may have tried LSD maybe once or twice, but she wasn't really into kind of doing a lot of substances. Jacob, on the other hand, he was into very hard substances. Specifically, he preferred and would do a lot of amphetamines. While they were in this program, Jacob developed a little bit of an obsession on Elyse, and he would talk to his friends about her. And when he would talk to his friends about her, he would talk about the fact that she had blonde hair and blue eyes, and to these three boys, that meant that she was pure. And soon you're going to understand why someone who is pure, or I think they're trying to imply a virgin, would be ideally who they were looking for. Unfortunately, why they were looking for this person was very dark. And unfortunately, Elyse was going to become their victim. The three boys were very into Satanism and the occult. And specifically, they were obsessed with the band Slayer. And I'm not someone who believes that music causes people to commit a crime or, do anything horrific, by just because of the music that they listen to. I do have to say, doing these videos, I've done about 100 of these videos by now, and the amount of times the band Slayer comes up is alarming. And I'll be honest, I've never listened to Slayer. While I was researching this, I listened to a song of theirs, and it's interesting that people call it music, but everyone has different tastes. The three boys, as they became more and more into Satanism, this was in 1995, they were ordering books about Satanism online. They were also ordering books that would give them instructions on how to commit sacrifices, and they were also sent specific knives to use in these sacrifices. These three boys were really, really effed up. I don't know how else to say it. The three boys decided somehow that if they would take the life of a virgin, somehow their band, now they're in a heavy metal band. I don't know that you could call that really a band. And they had a really original name for the band. I think they spent a lot of time really thinking, what is a name that would really draw attention, and something very creative. The name they came up with was Hatred. So, okay, yeah. That's a choice, and that was the choice they made. So they wholeheartedly believed if they would sacrifice a virgin to Satan, all of a sudden their band would explode and they would have all of this fame. Now, they could have took the option of learning how to play instruments correctly, learning vocals. You know, they could have put work into the music. They weren't interested in putting work into the music. They couldn't play instruments. They just screamed into a microphone. The music was just ridiculous. But somehow Satan's going to make them superstars. So the night before Elyse had snuck out of the house, which was the night we started talking about at the beginning of the video, Elyse had been at a house party. And when she was at the house party, Jacob was there as well. And they kind of recognized each other from being in this treatment counseling session for substances. And Elyse, I think she kind of felt a bit bad for him because he was part of these three group of boys that were like just really screwed up. Like they were just really, really messed up kids who had no direction and just, they were evil. And Elyse was a very sweet, innocent, accepting, loving person. So I think she almost would have sympathy that they were outcasted. Now, they were outcasted because they were evil and did evil things. But Elyse, at this party, she started talking to Jacob, and the two of them kind of hit it off. Elyse, she was interested in maybe having a little bit of a friendship with Jacob. She didn't have any real interest in him. And they talked throughout the night. And during that night, Jacob said to Elyse, well, you should sneak out with me and a couple of my friends sometime. We have this really good weed and we'll smoke it with you. So can I have your phone number? I'll call you when we get it and then we can sneak out and all smoke together. And Elyse, thinking it was simply that innocent that they were just going to go, sneak out at night, go to a park, smoke a little bit, and you go home, just, kind of typical teen stuff. The boys had a very, very different plan. So when Elyse got the call from Jacob the next night, she went up to her bedroom. She put some pillows in her bed to try to make it look like she was there, and she snuck out to meet them. Unfortunately, the boys, this was a huge plan that they had come up with, and it was sinister and evil. They believed that because she had blonde hair and blue eyes, she resembled the Virgin Mary, which is questionable to begin with because, she didn't have blonde hair or blue eyes, but they looked at Elyse as a very pure person. Apparently, having blonde hair and blue eyes in their eyes made her look super innocent, and she was a virgin, and that is what they wanted. So the boys were Royce Casey, who was 16 years old, Jacob Delashmutt, who was 15, who was the boy I've been speaking about so far, and Joseph Fiorella, who was 14 years old. Joseph, who was 14, he was the youngest of the three. He had a reputation for getting crushes on girls. And, at 14 years old, that's in most cases pretty common. How Joe handled it was not. He would stalk these girls. Like, if he decided he had a crush on, a girl, he would follow her home from school. He would stand outside her house at night. He wouldn't never actually go up, speak to her, approach her, or anything. He would just stalk her. And obviously, this made him extremely creepy to everyone that knew him, like especially all of the kids. Everyone thought this Joe kid was just psycho, and turns out he is. When Elyse had told her friends that she was going to sneak out with these 3 boys, all of her friends were like, do not do it. These guys are weird. They're creepy. They're probably dangerous. Please do not do this. But, you know, when you're 15 years old and, you know, maybe you don't quite see things quite so clearly, and something that can sound very exciting could actually be something dangerous. And Elyse decided she was going to go with these boys. So the night everything happens, Elyse gets a phone call from Jacob saying, come meet us. We're going to go smoke in the eucalyptus grove. She sneaks out, her and the 3 boys. They go to the eucalyptus grove. They're smoking and everyone's, you know, feeling pretty relaxed. And Elyse is just having a good time. She's looking up at the stars. It's so beautiful. And she's feeling extra relaxed. And then these 3 mother effers put their plan into motion. Casey jumped on Elyse and held her down. Jacob then took off his belt, put it around Elise's neck, and began choking her. Joseph then took out a knife, this specific knife they had ordered on the internet for this sacrifice, and began stabbing Elyse. Each of the 3 boys took a turn stabbing her, and in total, she was stabbed 12 times. And in Elise's last moments, she lay on the ground, bleeding to death, crying out to God and begging for her mother. And these 3 sick boys just let her bleed out. But after the 3 of them had taken Elise's life, they weren't done with her. They weren't done with her at all. All 3 of them took turns essaying her body. After they were finished doing all of the absolutely disgusting things that they wanted to do, they just went home. Later that night, Elise's dad went into her bedroom, and the old pillow under the blankets trick wasn't working. And her dad noticed immediately that she was not there and she had snuck out. Now, she had snuck out before, so her dad tried to contact her friends, like her close friends that were the people that if she was somewhere, these are the friends who would know where she was. And everyone he contacted, they had no idea. They had no idea where she was. So her family immediately, obviously, contacts the police to report her missing. But the police, they don't take it serious even a little bit. They just kind of tell the family, you know, she's probably out with friends, you know, she'll come back, maybe she's gone for a little while. This is typical teens. But parents, they know their kids. And Elyse's parents knew something was very wrong. They knew this was not just sort of a typical teen night where, you know, she had broken the rules. They knew something was very, very wrong. So Elyse was missing. Nobody but the family was looking for her. Police were not interested in, and time kept passing. And the more time that passed, the more her parents knew that this was not normal. This was not Elyse. And then the police got an anonymous call from someone claiming that they had seen Elyse about 10 miles away from her home. They claimed she had cut her hair short and she was living with a guy in his 20s. What did the police do? They say, okay. And they relay this information to the parents as though they've just solved the case. Did they go and try to confirm who this girl was that was living with this guy? Did they look into who the guy was? Did they do any type of investigation to confirm it was Elyse? No, they just took an anonymous caller's word for it. And, you know, they were done. as far as the police were concerned, police had done their job. And apparently their job involves doing nothing. Then Royce, who was one of the boys who'd gone to school with Elyse, after Elyse had been murdered, he befriended Elyse's friends and would talk with her friends as though he was very concerned about what happened to her. And he became very, very close to her friends. And nobody was ever really quite clear why he did this. Possibly it could be, him wanting to know what her friends were thinking. But I believe, and this is just my own personal opinion, because sometimes people who commit horrific crimes, they get an excitement, as sick it is to hear, they get an excitement in seeing the pain of the loved ones. And to me, that's what makes the most sense of why he would have befriended her friends, because they'd gone to school for years and never been friends before. And you just murdered their friend, but you want to sit and talk all day and all night about Elyse and all of the pain that her friends are going through. And I just can't imagine how those friends must feel once the boys finally get caught, knowing that in their most vulnerable moments, like as a young teen, like 14, 15, at that age, your friends are literally your life. And everything is, heightened and more kind of dramatic and emotional during those years. And I just think how they would feel knowing that they were sitting there really processing the grief they were feeling to Elyse's, well, at least one of Elyse's killers. It's just very, very sick and twisted. But these guys are the epitome of sick and twisted. Elyses parents, they weren't going to sit back and listen to the police as though this was all of a sudden solved when nobody had any idea what happened. So they ended up hiring a private investigator, and the private investigator went around town. He made up, all the missing posters and put them all over town, because the police didn't do that, because the police didn't do anything. But what started happening is all these signs around town made it very hard for those three boys to not have what they had done thrown in their face. Now, it's not like they felt bad about it, because after they had taken her life and left her in the eucalyptus grove, they went back several times to have sex with her decomposing body. I don't know. Sometimes things are just so sick. It's so hard to even comprehend how people can be so evil and disgusting. It's just, so horrific. Like, you've already taken her life. You now need to do this to her dead body that still hasn't been discovered. It's still laying out in this grove. Her family and friends have no idea what happened to her. It's vile, to put it mildly. Now, the one thing, these posters that the private detective had plastered all over town, it was starting to get to Royce, because he seemed, now all three boys, they're evil. All three of them participated fully in taking her life. All three boys committed horrific essay on her deceased body. Like, I'm not in any way trying to say Royce wasn't an absolutely horrific person, but him constantly seeing all of these pictures of her kept it in his mind of what they had done. And 8 months had gone by, and guess what? The band Hatred, they didn't get fame. Nothing happened. They were still just a loser band that no one cared about, with zero talent, that just screamed into a microphone with the inability to play any instruments. So whether it's guilt or it's the realization that, yeah, sacrificing someone, you're not going to get fame from that. Well, you're not going to get fame for your band. You may get fame for the psychopath that you are. But he apparently started to feel bad. And it's, when they start to feel bad, I'm like, shut up, shut up, shut up. You know what? If you felt bad, feel bad when she was in that grove and you were stabbing her. Feel bad when you essayed her body. Feel bad when you went back after and did it again and again and again. That's when you feel bad. Don't feel bad now. You've already done the worst possible thing a person can do, and you have her family and friends devastated, destroyed, and even the whole community. I mean, when a horrific crime happens to a person, and obviously it affects mostly the family and close friends and the people that knew that person the most. But it affects the community as well, because even if you don't know that person who had passed away, you feel horrible, and you feel horrible knowing the family never got answers. Like, it affects so many people. So you feeling bad now, Royce, no one cares, especially me. But Mr. Feel Bad, Royce Casey, he found Christianity. I call BS on the whole thing, but apparently, yeah, he found God. Now he feels bad. Congratulations, you're a piece of shit. So he ends up, basically he's confessing to a pastor, but he won't quite tell the pastor the whole story. He won't actually admit to what he did. Finally, I guess the pastor convinces him, like, you need to go to the police and tell the police exactly what happened. So that's what Royce did. He went to the police department and he told them what had happened. I'm sure in his description of what happened, he made himself a lot less involved than he actually was. But he did lead police to where Elyse's body was. So after he had confessed to the police, showed them where her body was, they were questioning him as to, why did you come forward now? And what he said, I think this is the real reason why he confessed to this murder. He was afraid that Joe and Jacob were going to kill him. So I don't think this had anything to do with he felt guilty and found God and all of this nonsense that he's going on about. I think he feared for his life. He knew they were capable of killing, and if he thought they were going to kill him, he pretty much probably wants them locked up. So all this nonsense about him, feeling bad, I don't think he felt bad at all. I think he feared for his life, and he confessed out of self-preservation, nothing to do with any concern for Elyse, her family, respect of her body, any of that. He was worried about himself. So the three boys were arrested and they all pled no contest. And during the trial, Casey's confession was read to the court. And this is when everyone discovered that it was her purity that they wanted. Her blonde hair and blue eyes, the fact that she was a virgin somehow would be the ultimate sacrifice. The court then handed down punishments to 26 years imprisonment up to life in prison for the three boys. Now, this was not enough for the family. Elyse's parents, David and Leanne, filed a lawsuit against the band Slayer, and claiming that their lyrics were directions that led to their daughter's murder. Obviously, this lawsuit was thrown out because bands can't be held responsible if someone listens to their lyrics and goes out and commits a horrific crime. And, I'm sure her parents, they were just searching for any explanation because it doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. So I'm sure they were just trying their best to try to figure out, how did this happen? It's so senseless. The issue with trying to blame bands is that Millions of people listen to their music and they don't go out and commit crimes. The truth was, these were 3 disturbed, evil individuals, and they were responsible regardless of what music they listened to. Elyses parents, the Pahlers, their life just got harder after Elyse had passed. They clearly could not handle what they had been through, which, I mean, obviously, I don't know how anyone could handle it. Her mother suffered very badly from PTSD. They ended up losing their home. And her father, he dealt with a lot of anger, which, I mean, obviously, how could you not be angry that this had happened? And her father made a statement. I'm going to read it directly. David gave a statement on February 2017, and he said, "For many months, we suffered through the nightmare of not knowing what happened to Elyse. When her body was finally discovered, I learned that she had been barbarically murdered, and I was consumed with grief. Although the defendants received prison sentences, it did little to ease the horror of what they did. The pain of losing my daughter and knowing she suffered will never leave me." And so many stories that we talk about, obviously the ultimate victim is the Elyse. Like, Elyse is the victim of the crime. But the family and close friends of the victim, they're the ones who have to go on living with what happened. They're the ones that have to get up every day and continue living their lives. They're the ones who carry the grief and the pain for the rest of their lives. And I really hope that Elyse's parents have found some type of peace or some type of comfort, some way that they're able to get through the rest of their lives. They lost a child. Like, life will never go back to normal. Life will never be fantastic. Like, they've lost their daughter. So that's a grief they'll live with until they die. Joseph Fiorella, he's now in his 40s. He's incarcerated in High Desert State Prison in California. He was eligible for parole in 2019, but he was denied, thankfully. Jacob is also still in prison. He was up for parole in 2017, but he's been denied as well. But Royce Cassie, he is very close to being released. So they kind of went back and forth in the courts about his parole, but finally June 6, 2022, he was granted parole, which I'm a little confused about because his status still says that he's incarcerated in the California prison system. But a judge could decree at any time to release him. So most likely he will be released. And most likely I would think it would probably be soon. And very interestingly, the Pahler family does not oppose his release. Now, I don't know necessarily if they don't oppose it or that they've come to terms with the fact that it's going to happen. So yeah, he'll be loose in California soon. That's terrifying, but yeah. So that is the end of today's story. I want to say a huge thank you to each and every one of you. You guys are subscribing like crazy. If you're a new subscriber, thank you so much. Welcome to the channel. And if you ever have suggestions of any cases you'd like me to cover, you can leave it in the comment section of any video. I read every comment, and I really just appreciate you guys for, liking, subscribing, all those magical, wonderful YouTube things you do that makes YouTube push out the channel more. So I just want to end this by saying thank you so much to all of you for watching and supporting the channel. It means the world to me, and I will see you. Oh, and I forgot to say, so yeah, this was supposed to be uploaded yesterday, and I made a post saying every Friday there'll be a video, and then I screwed it up yesterday, but I had to re-record the video not even going to go into it, but I had to re-record the video. So this is going to be up Saturday. I'm filming it really early in the morning and we'll have it out to you guys. I'm going to go edit it right now and put it out. So I appreciate all of you, and do something today that makes your soul happy, and I will see you in the next one.